Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Higher Density Living. A beautiful day here in New Mexico. Jason and I, again, in two separate areas, but no difference in the value of what is being shared. Our previous episode, we were talking about a lot of the values of Christ consciousness and not looking at that individual, Jesus, Emmanuel, Yeshua, as a son of God, but really a son of man. An idea that he was human like everyone else and that the value and powers of us are all quite internal. And I think that this is a nice transition here to speak about this other social memory complex group called Quo, which was channeled by the same group that did the raw material, Carla Ruckert, Don Elkins, and Jim McCarty. And I think as we'll see that there is a confluence in shared value and ideology between what's being said. A lot of the things that were spoken about by this prophetic person 2 years ago on our own planet, like we spoke in the last episode, are universally shared by those in places that could be millions of light years away. So, Jason, you want to kick it off for us?
Yeah, I want to. There's just a couple paragraphs, but of course, everything that they say is super powerful.
Yeah,
And I thought this would be super encouraging for those out there. And it's a whole different way to think of yourself if you're having bad thoughts, if you're exhausted, depressed, if you're maybe your energy isn't where it should be. So he starts off and he says this: there will be times when it will seem that your energy body is ill. He says, let it be ill. Enter into the exhaustion, the depression, or whatever condition which is afflicting your energy body at a particular moment. It is not necessary to behave or to feel in a certain way. And I want to stop there because this is something that we all think we have to do, whether you can stand in front of a mirror, and if you're super fat and you say, I am thin, I am thin, I am thin, you got this weird feeling like what I see in the mirror is not my affirmation. My positive, there's this congruence there,
correct.
Of I'm kind of being fake when I say this positive affirmation,
You're doing more damage.
Yes, and spirituality and in these teachings are constantly doing this, just stay positive, just stay positive. And this dude is turning around and being like, no. Embrace it.
Here's something which I found is very helpful with that. I meditate naked. And people are probably like, oh, what the heck? That's really weird. The idea behind it is that I have time to be exactly who I am, down to my very core. In every sense of the material self, there's nothing I can do to hide myself. I'm completely exposed. And
yes.
Through that exposure of the self, I have to be extremely honest with who I am, honest with how I look. And then at that point, I become very honest with my thoughts. So the congruence, the confluence, the corroboration of what's happening in the material from my perspective of how I'm viewing myself and how I view my own internal thoughts, it actually supercharges it. And I know people are like, wow, that's really taking a step above to meditate naked. Well, we all know how free it feels to take your clothes off and then get in a shower. It feels great. Mm-hmm. But if you're just going to take your clothes off to do something outside of that, just to sit in a room and be with yourself, recognize yourself, see yourself just for what you are, that objectivity doesn't put you in a state of falsehood, a state of untruth where you're saying, oh, I'm not fat, I'm not fat. It forces you, not like fatness is a bad thing, but it forces you to see what is really going on with the self and to accept it for what it is. Not to make bad choices, but to recognize you're a human being and that the person who has the power to fix the physical, to fix the mind, fix the body, and to really feel into the spirit is you. And it requires that deep focus.
Yeah. And this is what he says. He says they simply scoop the inconvenient emotions out of the way. He's talking about spiritual students. These are our listeners. This is us. They simply scoop the inconvenient emotions out of the way so that they will be able to perceive themselves as wise and metaphysically correct seekers.
Yeah. And we're not, though. You can't hide the fact. Listen, there's no shortcut path to evolving the consciousness. Everything has a logical path and step, and we all have errors. It's not to be the most perfect person without error. To do that is not really to understand the negative aspects of the self. You have positive
Mm,
and
yes.
negative. You remove the balance. You become unbalanced by scooping those things away and choosing not to afford focus to them, to think that those things aren't a part of you. What that does is it actually makes you further apart from who you truly are at your core.
Yeah, and he says, while we encourage you to tweak, like a little knob. I always think of DJs, how they just tweak the knob just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, before the drop.
While we encourage you to tweak the thoughts as they come through you, listen, this is so good, bro. Listen to this. And to help yourself to find better versions of your own truth.
Oh, it's the best. It's like, here's the cool part. Truth comes in many different ways. You can see it many different ways. So it allows you to go through the versions of truth to find that resonate with you the most. Someone's version of truth is not going to resonate the same with you, right?
Mm,
You may think that going to the gym 7 days a week is the best thing for every human being to do. That may be your truth. That may be the best thing for you. But for other individuals, it may be going 2 days a week and then long walks for everything else, right? It's not finding the right version that requires focus and it requires looking at the truth itself.
yes.
You have to think about it and you have to realize that what may work for somebody else doesn't necessarily have to work for you. So when you go to a spiritual guru or these spiritual teachers and they tell you this is the only way to do it, you have to remove all these things. You have to be positive. You can't think like this. It's fundamentally not true. You're never going
No.
to find the version that works for you. You'll be in a constant, endless state of frustration trying to find that truth.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something that you need to get up from your lotus position or whatever position you're in that guru's place and get the hell out of there.
Oh, and stop paying for these people in any sort of self-help format to say, oh, we're going to help you do this. And when one session doesn't work, they say you have to come back and pay another $500. You should run even further away. You need
Because
to
it's no,
understand. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
there's no difference from going there to going to a church to going to any religious dogma that's out there. It's all the same.
Correct. And whether you're staring at an ant or a leaf or you're sitting alone in a room, all the same answers, truth, variants of it, versions can be found. It just
Yeah,
requires time.
he says, we do encourage you above all. That's pretty above all.
That's big.
To witness to your own truth, whatever that may be. If you are in a bad way, it is not the end of the spiritual world.
Think about it for some people. Like, if there's like some sort of negative streak that's happening, they give up on it all. They think
Mhm.
that, oh, this spiritual practice, whatever I'm doing, this meditate, none of it works because, it's just bad things are occurring. Those things are fundamentally separate.
Mhm.
What you're doing is you're pushing forward this negativity and not actually seeing the learning catalyst, the value, the benefit, the love, the understanding, the positive that really occurs from it. It requires patience. These things don't happen overnight. It's not like I download the Calm app and I'm a yogi in the next 5 fucking minutes. It doesn't occur like that. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
requires,
I'm
yeah,
just going to positively think that I'm not in this concentration camp right now.
yeah. It doesn't work like that. You are where you are, and
Yes.
you have to understand that there are things to be learned. You can't just immediately turn it into just some massive positive thing, especially if your free will is being oppressed. But you must understand that there are two sides to the learning that always occur. There has to be a balancing that happens from it. How do you equalize that energy without giving up on the path that you're on? And the path isn't easy. If it was easy, we'd all be enlightened beings. We'd all have total understanding. We'd all stop shooting each other by tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
But
and I
that
like
hasn't
it.
occurred.
Eckhart Tolle talks about this, and he said a witness to your own truth, to be a witness to your own truth. And Eckhart Tolle uses that same word, a witness, almost being separate from the emotion, being separate from the thought, because, and you've shared this many of times, and I think this is really important, that causal state of allowing the emotions to take control of you and then you having effect.
Yeah.
Instead of being a witness of that and saying, this is my monkey mind, this is my ego, whatever you want to call it, this is my lower self, there's lots of names for it, but this is this responding to this, and I'm viewing this, my monkey mind is viewing this as something that's negative when actually, like you said, it's a learning catalyst for me. no matter what it is, whether it's horrific and I'm in a concentration camp, or I'm imprisoned, or I'm at the top of the world, and I've just become a multimillionaire because I sold my company, whatever it may be. All of these are going to create. There's going to be learning lessons with all of them.
And that's fundamentally the whole point of this. It's not to have all the answers in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's to go about the logical, straight path and taking the steps to evolve your understanding of yourself, others, and how you are part and parcel of creation itself. It doesn't happen overnight. There are no shortcuts. Everybody wants the shortcuts, but this thing, this one thing, free for us all to do, requires patience, diligence, and work. It requires that. It has to occur. There's no rush to these things, but it says you need to take the focus to do so. And when that frame of reference changes, when you look at life as nothing but a learning experience, how you take in situations become more truthful. They become more valuable. And regardless what happens, it's just material for you to continue to step off of and push that evolution further forward.
Yeah, and he says this, and it's far better to allow yourself to heal, to move through that huge amount of catalyst that has somehow gotten stuck in your system than to try to hurry it.
Yeah.
Even if you're feeling perfectly miserable.
Listen, the catalyst is there. Don't scoop it away. Don't kick it away. Look at it, feel it, understand it, work the catalyst. It's a gift. It is a gift. Every moment is a gift. Every experience, every word someone shares, every emotion is a gift for you to put focus into, to recognize that this thing is the material. It is the ammunition. It is whatever it is, the gasoline. I don't care what it is. It's your fuel for your growth.
Yeah, and I had a perfect example that happened to me the other day because it's been cold here in New Mexico.
Yeah, go ahead.
And there was a garden hose that I was trying to use to water a bunch of plants in the greenhouse. And it was so interesting when you have a frozen water hose because you didn't click the button and you left the water in there. And so I began to, I cut it on, and then I had to let it over time the hose be in the sun. But it was so interesting because he said that huge amount of calories has somehow gotten stuck in your system. When I saw the water trying to trickle out,
yeah,
and then other water had it stuck, it was just in a different form. Because it's basically, I mean, we've all had this happen if we've been in cold climate. Then it just starts shooting out these little, they're like 2 to 4 inch little ice crystals,
yeah.
that are in the shape of the hose. And then once they all come out, it's free flowing.
Yeah,
And that's what I thought about when I read
value.
this.
Yeah, it's blocked.
Mhm.
Like you got to take the catalyst, use it for what it is, and then let it go. Don't ignore it. Don't do all those things because you have to learn from it, but then pass it on. But
Mhm.
like the hose, it's there and you're keeping it there. So the full flow of learning, creational energy, whatever it might be, you inhibit that. You inhibit it by packing these things in and essentially just ignoring it rather than allowing it to mobilize, learn, and let it leave. Like that's the thinking. These are the cause and effects you have to deal with.
Yeah, and he said that's just exactly what you're saying. He says it is far better to allow the natural flow of your own energy body to move that through your system as it really feels to do without your asking your energy body to put a rush on it and to get rid of the feelings that you do not want.
Yeah. How hard is it, Jason, when you get into a state of anger or frustration, everything speeds up and
Oh
you
yeah.
exacerbate it. And then you're like, all right, I don't want to be mad anymore. And you try and chuck it out. But your body, you still feel it in your cells. You still feel it in your spine that you're still jazzed from it, even though you've consciously made the decision to let it go. Well, you still need to be patient that the body has to catch up with the thought you've made in your mind. But most people just rush it off and they're off to the next thing. And it still has that residue there. And that residue continues because you haven't essentially given it its focus, allowed it to move properly. You're fighting yourself internally all the time.
So good. Yes. Yeah. And the whole idea of, like I was, when I thought of this, to give a kind of a reference, nowadays in our Western medicine, how we give women Pitocin to make them dilate really fast because the
Mhm.
doctor only has 20 minutes to deliver the baby. So he
Yeah.
wants it to be at 10:15 to 10:45. So, the body naturally over time will open up super slowly.
Yep.
We had our children with a midwife, and she's like, I'm going to be here for a day. Just relax. Let's watch movies. The body will take care of itself. The child will come out. She kept saying, you don't have to push. You don't have to do anything. The child will come out. Trust me. And we ended up having a water birth, but I mean, it was like, there was no pushing. It was just accepting what was happening to the body. And, of course, I'm giving you descriptions of it being lovely when,
Yeah.
every woman's yelling at me right now. It's like, you don't know what the fuck it's.
Yeah, you chauvinist fucking pig, but
Yeah, but I'm just saying the whole process was totally different when you rush something compared to allow something creationally natural to happen.
yeah, I agree. Like, think about the whole process of giving birth. It's become so synthetic. Women are laying on their backs.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even allowed to have gravity work to their advantage. And like you said, the hospital, they try to get it out, or the doctor says, in some senses, yes, statistically, it could be a high risk because it's stuck. Well, maybe because the person's on their back. You know what I mean? And what about everything leading up to it? I mean, if you think about like that, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but the dilation, there are certain foods within the diet that are beneficial to help that dilation actually occur. People's bodies are inherently inflamed, but how do you reduce that inflammation? How do you reduce the stress that causes the body to constrict? You want to let things flow naturally.
Yeah, and it's so sad because, instead of allowing the body to open up, the hips to open up, the cervix to open up, to allow that to open up naturally in a long time, instead what they're doing is they're giving this drug, it's opening up really fast. Some of the parts aren't opening, and then it's like, oh, C-section.
Yeah, doesn't work.
And then now, and then people, there found a lot of issues with that, and you have permanent scars and all that. But the last part of this to end this, this is why we had to do this podcast, because and for everybody it may be different, but this line is probably one of the most powerful lines I have read in the Law of One. So I'm setting this up big.
Drop it on me.
All of your feelings have gifts in their hands.
Dude.
Even the most crushing and cruel. There is for the brave, persistent seeker a lesson in everything.
I feel like I just iterated on this beforehand. I said, everything that happens to you is a gift.
Yes.
Every time you feel something, that is an absolute gift of learning material for your evolution. And when you start to see that, every time you have a feeling, thank it. Thank yourself. Thank every person that was a part of it. Thank every cell in your body for that feeling, because that affords you to be one step closer to going back to that thing, which is creation, to feeling it, to have that aspect of the creator inside of you.
And I love that, because I just picture like what we would call a bad or a good emotion, and it's just sitting there with these hands, like the emotion, it's got a little body on it, and it's sitting there with these hands. And then in these hands are all these little gifts. It's like, here you go, Jason. Here's some gifts of understanding. Here's some gifts of wisdom. Right. So when you look at it that way, it's like, yay, I get to approach something negative right now, perceived to be negative, but it's actually going to be super positive because I learned something. A shitload about myself.
So it's going to be negative for a second, right? But it's like, wow, what did I learn? How did I handle that? How did it make me feel? How did it make the other person feel? It only can possibly drive understanding when you take it as a learning experience. And why do you have two hands? Balance. That's what it is. You got the positive and the negative. And when you have the gift in both hands, you can bring them together, right? Hold the hands together. Bring it back to yourself. It's all about maintaining that balance and using those gifts, which are so readily given all the time. And they're given because creation, all it does is give. It's the highest aspect of love.
Amen, brother. So as you can see behind you, I want to talk about both our sponsors real quick. As you can see behind you, Tardo.co. Sign up. This is the cool part. You can sign up to Tardo.co. You can earn to share data, and you can earn money for that. Or you can donate it to Higher Density Living. We're a 501c3. You can go in there and fill out data packets. And in these data packets are information. It's fully private, fully encrypted. And we encourage you to just go on Tardo.co. You can also go to YouTube and type in TCast by
Yep.
Tartle, and you'll see the other podcast. It's a technology podcast, but we have tons of walkthrough videos if you're not sure on that. But if you listen, we've been growing in listenership like crazy. Downloads have been absolutely insane. Every month we keep breaking a record. We've already broke the record from last month now.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, so it's awesome. So if you listen to Higher Density Living, we ask you of you one thing, and that is to, make sure you share this with other people. And then our last sponsor, QualityMazdaNM.com. If you're looking for a vehicle, make sure that you look at QualityMazdaNM for NewMexico.com. If you live in Colorado, Texas, or New Mexico, we'd love for you to look at our sponsor. They don't have salespeople. They have product specialists, and they're there to help you, not pressure you on your next car purchase.
You want to know why? Because next time you have that experience, it's going to be a gift. Thanks, everybody.